All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our podium performance session, our first of two in the month of March. As you know, on March 8th was International Women's Day. So sticking with that theme, we'd like to hear from a couple female leaders within their provinces. So today we have Emma DeLory from Rugby Nova Scotia, who is the Rugby Development Officer. And then later in March, we're going to be hearing from Kristen Colley from Newfoundland with Baseball Newfoundland. So before I introduce Emma, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic that we are located in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship. We honor Mi'kmaq people who have taken care of this land, and at CSCA, we show respect for this land and work to make sure we keep taking care of it for all of us. We are all treaty people. And now I would like to introduce Emma, our presenter for today. So Emma is the Development Officer for Rugby Nova Scotia, the head coach with the St. Mary's Women's Rugby Team, and team manager for Canadian Senior Women's Team. Her philosophy reads, I push participants to not only understand more about themselves, but also their connection to the world. If I have impacted a person's life so that they make changes to better themselves and their future, I have been successful. I believe that this can be done at all levels of sport and with all stakeholders. So we're really excited to hear from Emma today because she's doing lots of great things for the sport of rugby and specifically with women in rugby. So we hope that you will enjoy this session. And again, I will have Emma present, and at the end you can ask any questions and feel free to put them in the chat as well. So Emma, I'll let you take it away from here.
Sure. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody for having me today. I just want to echo Kirsty's acknowledgement there of the land, that I'm also coming to you from Mi'kma'ki. I'm situated here in Bedford, and I love to take a minute just at the start. Like we often put that at the start, and then I love all the words that you brought there, Kirsty. Sometimes it's good to really explain what that means, and for me to just make it a little bit more impactful as well. Like I like to take a minute and think about like something this week that the land has given me, or a moment that I enjoyed in nature. So I'll just like take a couple seconds here and let everybody think about some way that the land has impacted you this week. Okay, thanks everybody for indulging me there. Yes, today we're going to be talking about a couple ways that I've learned recently to empower females in sport. And oh, there's a line there. I don't know where that came from, but just ignore it. So a little bit about me. Like Kirsty mentioned, I'm the development officer for Rugby Nova Scotia. So in that role, I work a lot of our grassroots level, but I'm also a facilitator for our coaching courses. So I work a lot with developing coaches through our province as well. I'm also the head coach with the St. Mary's Women's Varsity Team. So working with some top end high performance athletes there. I do a bit of ID for Rugby Canada in their junior programs, U18 and U20 out here on the east side of Canada. That's one of the pictures in the bottom. And then again, team manager with the National Senior Women's Team. And I feel very lucky and privileged to have all of those titles and roles that I do. I love the sport and I love giving back to this sport. So I feel very lucky to have all of those roles. The one thing that I'll say is I don't pretend to be a specialist in empowering women in sport. I'm just learning about doing some of this work myself. And I think, you know, sometimes we have like people who are masters in their skill come onto these calls and talk to us about the mastery that they have. And we hopefully learn something from that. But I think the one thing that I do bring to the table for all of you is that I'm in a pretty unique position where I'm very passionate about helping girls and women in their journey in sport and encouraging them to continue to participate and be the best that they can be. It's one of my biggest passions. But I also work for a sport full-time that is relatively small, where there's not a lot of red tape going on for us to be able to try new initiatives. So I'm lucky in a sense that if I have an idea pop into my head, often it gets approved by our board pretty quickly. They have a lot of trust in what we do, and I appreciate them for that. And yeah, so today I'm just going to talk about some of the things that I've done in this past year, and hopefully you'll like some of the ideas and maybe you'll be able to connect with some of them and use them. So the first thing I'd like to do is just take a look at who's actually in the room. So Kirsty is going to launch a poll and feel free to participate. That'd be great. It just means based on the poll results, I can kind of tailor the way that I'm talking to the group. So there's a couple questions there. The first is about what kind of gender you identify with. And then we've got some questions about, what your role is in sport. So just ask that you take a minute to answer those questions. Love to see that there's some males on the call. Whenever female is in a title of a PD session, you're always interested what kind of split you're going to get. Maybe Kirsty, when you feel like we're good, if you want to just give us a bit of a summary of some of the answers that we got there.
Yeah, so we had 14 people reply, 11 identify as women, and 3 as man.
Okay.
And I'll launch the next one about your role in sport.
Perfect.
And I believe you can respond to multiple answers, as I know we all wear a lot of hats, so feel free to click as many as you'd like.
Yeah, I love this range. We've got lots of different people on the call, administrators, athletes, some board members, community level coaches, provincial, Canada Games coaches, and officials. So that's great to see that there's either a very wide array of people here, or a lot of people are wearing a lot of hats, which is probable as well.
Okay, and then the last one, specific to your location. So we have 6 regions in Nova Scotia that we identified, and then New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Labrador, Prince Edward Island, and then anything outside of the Atlantic provinces.
And the reason that this question is interesting for me, and I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that, like I mentioned, I'm here in Bedford. Although I do work across the province in Nova Scotia, really we have to tailor whatever programming we're doing in our region specific to the participants that are interested there, and really make it something that's going to work for them. So, I wouldn't recommend completely doing a cookie cutter copy and paste unless you think that's exactly what's going to work. But for sure, like to take some pieces of what you learned and try and create something that works for your sport and for where you're located as well.
Great, thanks, Emma. So looks like we have representation from Central, Fundy, Highland, South Shore, and Valley regions in Nova Scotia, someone from New Brunswick, and then we have 3 people from outside of the Atlantic provinces. So thanks for joining us in your early morning, wherever you're joining from. And I'll stop sharing and let Emma continue.
Awesome. Okay, and thanks for doing that, everybody. That will be the most participation I will require of you for this presentation. So if you're eating your lunch or having a coffee, feel free to enjoy it. Sit back and relax. Okay, so like Kirsty mentioned, we all know that a couple days ago, the 8th was International Women's Day, and Connie, who is a owner of the R Studios suite of gyms here in Halifax, she is somebody that I look up to in terms of business, and she did a panel for the Dow Management Business Society on the 8th. And although I didn't get to see it in person, I went back and she posted this on her Instagram about some of the things that she talked about during that presentation. And I think it's really kind of a valuable kind of quote. So I just want to start with this. So when asked, what are your goals? Or now that you have 5 locations, are you done? And Connie's response to that was, the locations are simply the platform, and now the real work begins. I think that's super relatable with everything that we're doing in sport. Like for me, it's my personal philosophy that I use sport as my platform, and I want to do the work that I'm passionate about, which is in empowering females in whatever the heck they want to do in their lives, to be successful in that. And I use sport as a platform to do that. So think about, the platform that you have, the programs that you offer, and how those are the platform. And once we've got that platform, some of us might be on the place where we still need to create that platform. Some of us might already have the platform, and now we want to dive deeper into a bit of the work that we can do within those platforms. So I'd just like to talk about again a little bit about, this is exactly what I'm going to talk to you about today. So you're getting a bonus what I've learned, but I think it's because it's a really important one. The last one there won't be new, but I think it's important to touch on because I believe it has the biggest impact. So first, we need to think about context for all of these platforms that we might have. So I'll talk to you today about a prep course that we did, which, created on an administration level and was designed for coaches. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work I'm doing with my leadership group at St. Mary's, and that was created by coaches, and it was created for our athletes to empower the athletes. And then something else, the bonus at the end, is going to be something that coaches can do to empower other coaches. So that's kind of the direction we'll go in for today. Those will be the examples. And then just in terms of my own philosophy around empowerment, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up these three things as we go through these kind of, for lack of a better term, case studies. You'll see these kind of philosophies be picked up in each of them. So empowerment to me means you have a sense of your self-worth. It means you get to determine your own choices, and you have the opportunity to influence social change. So a purpose behind what you're doing. And I think if you've got all three of these things, then you've got a really good program or a really good platform on your hand to be able to empower people if this is what they're getting out of it. Men and women, by the way. So first, I'll talk about this first kind of case study. This was something that Rugby Nova Scotia decided to get behind this year. It was just a random idea I had in my head from, talking to a couple of coaches who I work pretty closely with and trying to design something that I thought could be of benefit for them. So to give you a bit of context in rugby, the level 2 is our competition introduction and CCP course. And this is generally the higher end coaches are taking this course in rugby. So the majority of our coaches would have their level 1 community initiation course. And then our level 2 course is like our provincial coaches, university coaches, maybe senior club coaches would go on to try and take this course. Not that it's only open to them, but because it's a significant financial investment, that's who we see majority taking this course. So in that context, majority, this is for dealing with our high level coaches or coaches trying to get into a high performance environment, which is a space that we see in sport where the divide between men and women doing that job is a little bit greater than at the community level. So I really wanted to try and have an impact in this space in our sport. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the way that we went about doing this. The first thing is because we were advertising this to our whole community of Rugby Nova Scotia and people, even with outside the community, we put it up on our social media. We wanted to make sure that we educated why this was only being offered for women. So I'll just read you the actual words that we have here. And if you want to go back and look at this, it's on the Instagram account for Rugby Nova Scotia. So women and girls make up more than 50% of the population, but continue to be underrepresented in sport. And it stems from a history in sport that's actively excluded their participation. So as a result, organizations need to take an active approach to include women and girls by inviting them, connecting with them, listening, and valuing them as participants and leaders in sport. Second, women and other equity deserving groups face different individual, organizational, and sociocultural barriers to participate and be leaders in sport. So the level 2 prep, which is what we're talking about now, the course, is an example of a Rugby Nova Scotia initiative that's in line with our gender equity outreach strategy. So it aims to actively connect and engage female coaches in order to build confidence, to lessen the inclusion and sociocultural barriers associated with high-level coaching, which is why it's specific for level 2. So goals of the prep course, this is what I wanted to get out of it. We wanted them to feel confident, and we wanted them to have confidence in order to engage and participate in the level 2 course when they were on it. So often we found that our female participants maybe held back a little bit at the start of the course. And that's just, they were a little bit nervous, a little bit cautious about what they were getting into. So hopefully we wanted to instill a bit of confidence that they could come into the course and feel like they could jump in and participate and ask questions from the very beginning. We also wanted them to have a network of female coaches to be able to support them through their level 2. So they built a network that they could rely on through the course, and just to feel confident in understanding and actually applying the material that's expected in the level 2. So what did we include? It was 4 online sessions of group prep work led by myself. We're lucky in Rugby Nova Scotia to have a female facilitator, but it could certainly be ran by, it doesn't need to be a facilitator, just somebody who knows the course information pretty well. So some of the stuff that we went over, it was a 2-week program, and we did 2 nights a week. I think it was like, a Monday and a Thursday or something like this, where we just met online as a group, and the 2 weeks led right into the course. So it was built to be like everything was still fresh in their minds when they left this. So our first session, we did a review of the level 1, which they already should have done. And we did a preview of the level 2, which just involved going through the transcript. The session 2, we looked at values and philosophy, because this is the first time that the coaches would have actually had to create a philosophy and have that as part of their portfolio that they're passing in for their level 2. So we looked at how to draft one of those up. In session 3, we dove into some of the actual technical tactical pieces, and that was based on the feedback I got when we did our first session in level 1 or in session 1. So where they felt like the biggest gaps were, we just went through it together as a group so that they could have a little bit more confidence when they saw it for a second time on the course. And then the last session, I just went through what the evaluation process looks like. So in our level 2, once they finish the in-person course, they would be trained, and then they have to hand in a portfolio and be evaluated in person or on video in order to be certified. So we just had a look at what that actually entailed. So I'll give you some numbers now. So coaches that we got to register for the prep course, we had 15 people register, 15 women register. And then coaches who actually completed the prep course, so came to the majority of the sessions, we had 10. And now I do want to make a little bit of a clarification. It wasn't we had 5 people drop off and not actually complete it. I wanted to really create that strong network of this cohort of coaches going through their level 2 together as a group. So there was a couple coaches that weren't actually in the province, but wanted to use it as a bit of a PD kind of thing. And they had worked with us in the past. And I said, you know what, happy to work with you if you want to chat about any of these things separately. But the purpose of this is really to create a cohort of women who are going to go through this process together. So there were a couple people after that was explained to, they were like, okay, fair enough. Maybe I'll be able to come on the next one kind of thing. And then we had 7 of the coaches who actually completed the prep course go on to the level 2 course. And I'll just to be clear, the level 2 course that we offered was not women only. It was women, and like it was any gender could be on this actual level 2 course. And it was just the prep course in advance that was offered for women. And then we're still kind of in this process. This only happened in February. So our final number of coaches to complete their level 2 evaluation is TBD for now. And our goal would be to have at least, half of them complete to their evaluation stage, which is higher than what we've had in the past, but I think is a reasonable goal for the coaches that we had on the course. And number that's not on here that I just wanted to give to you as well is The level 2 course had a total of 10 coaches on the course. 7 of them had done the prep course and were women. There was another female who came on the course without doing the prep course, and the other 2 were male coaches. So just even that ratio within the course gives you a pretty good idea of the success of this program. I'm going to move on to my next kind of piece here. But if there are any questions that are in the chat or anything, Kirsty, feel free to interrupt me whenever. If not, that's okay. Or if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat now as well. But I'll keep it rolling along if there's none. So the next one we're going to go into is how coaches can impact the athletes. So this middle one here. So this is something that I tried this year with my St. Mary's athletes. And the whole idea was just to create a calendar of events for the full year for them so that they could have kind of their social calendar interacting with their actual planning for the full year. And they had an idea of what they were doing as a team. So that was the goal of this. I'm just going to go through the steps that I did to get to this end calendar point. So the first thing was to establish a leadership group, which I'm sure is not new for many of the coaches on the call. Then set a meeting date, hold the meeting, important. And within the meeting, my goals were to establish a connection, create purpose and a team identity, to brainstorm ideas based on the purpose and identity, and then create a calendar based on all of those brainstormed ideas. So I will go through exactly how we went into each of these steps. So the leadership group, first of all, was just an open call. We use Slack to communicate as a team. It was just an open call out to the team. Who wants to be in the leadership group? Tell me by the end of the week. We had some people put their hands up, created a new Slack channel for our leadership group. We set a meeting and held the meeting. So this is not my SMU girls, but I didn't take any pictures during our meeting of the SMU girls, but this gives you an idea of what we were trying to do. So establish a connection. And the way that I went about doing that in the meeting was actually cooked them a meal. And this is inside the social / party room of my apartment building. So had the leadership group over, cooked a meal, and then we all sat down and ate a meal together and kind of just like chatted about their day, their week, casual conversation during dinner to establish a bit of a connection and something that wasn't just about sport. This is an idea of what that could have looked like. And then the second thing is we use this development guide to create our purpose and our team identity. And we did that as a group. And this development guide is actually something that Kirsty showed me through the Targeted Coach Enhancement Program that the CSCA runs. So I'm sure she could send out a link if people are interested in having this resource. And it was created by Sport New Zealand. And it's nothing too complicated, to be honest. It just asks some good questions. And the questions help you to develop a bit of a purpose. So I went through just the first couple of questions with our leadership group, and we came up with 3 purposes for our team that they wanted to have. And actually, before I get into these purposes, of course, you can read it on the screen now. I'll read it out in a second, but I really wanted to highlight with the athletes that, yes, we are a varsity team. It is our purpose to compete, to train as athletes, and to ultimately, try and win for our school. That is the purpose of our team. However, that is the purpose of every varsity team across the country. So my question to them was, what actually is going to set our team apart? How is our purpose going to be a little bit different than other teams across the country? Because we all have that goal of winning at the end of the day. And so what other purposes do we have as a team? So we came up with 3. So number 1 was to inspire girls and women to pursue and commit to the rugby community, to build confidence, to show how inclusive and body positive the sport naturally is. That was the first one they came up with. The second one they came up with was to make fun a priority and to build lifelong friendships. And the third one that they came up with was to create a safe space for team members to talk about and invest in their mental health. So the next step after having listed all of these purposes and kind of developed them a little bit was to brainstorm around, okay, we've got these purposes. And then the question that I posed to the group was, how is anybody outside our team going to know that these are our purposes if we don't tell them? So how can we prove to the community, whether that be our team, whether it be our school or our community or the rugby community or Nova Scotia, how can we prove that these are our purposes? So what are we going to do? What actions are we going to have? So we brainstormed some stuff for each of the purposes. And in this brainstorm section of the night, anything was a good answer. So everything got put on the list, no matter if we thought it was a lot of money or it would take a lot of time or resources, it all got put up there. So I'll just read out a couple for each of the purposes. So here, with inspiring women and girls to be involved in the rugby community. They thought they could share stories of how the athletes on our team got involved on social media. They thought about going to the schools with something like a booth to talk about rugby, linking into community groups, sports facilities, after school programs, middle school gym classes, day camps to do games or activities, an Insta Live panel or a Zoom panel to show up to high school games in St. Mary's Kip. And I think, you know, none of these things are incredibly new. Like, I'm sure everybody on the call has probably been involved or have seen one of these ideas happen. But the big thing for me here, and the reason that this is empowering them to do it, is because they came up with the ideas and they came up with the purpose. And then they were challenged to prove it. So to me, that is the way that you actually empower them to do it. If I just made, you know, LinkedIn with middle school and said, hey, can I get 4 athletes to come help me today run this gym class or whatever it happens to be, I'm sure I would get buy-in from the team, but the sense of empowerment over what they're actually doing was my goal here. So the ideas may not be new, but the reasoning behind it has changed. That's what I hope for. Our second purpose, this was building lifelong friendships and making fun of priorities. So you can read the list there, but essentially it's a lot of team building activities, like things like trips or a Mario Kart tournament or, you know, team camping. These are the ideas that they came up with. And then our third purpose, so to be able to talk and invest in their mental health. So social media posting, mental health check-ins, which they thought could be peer-to-peer and maybe weekly. Have a visible scale at training, high five it on the way in and out of based on where they're feeling. Plan a mindful activity once a month. Book the VIP lounge for the whole afternoon before games with a snack bar. Emphasize during off-season training that that's a great time to encourage the discussion around mental health. So the next step, we've got all of these great ideas, and the next step was actually putting dates to these ideas. Now, what I said to the athletes was, we don't need to do everything. Okay, I want you to pick at least one thing from each of our priorities, each of our purposes, and everybody has to take the lead on at least one thing. And you can do it with somebody else if you're a little bit unsure of what you're going to do, but everybody has to be at least a co-lead of one activity. And we put these big calendars up, taped them around the walls, and I put on the calendars with post-it notes other significant dates that they might have to work around. So like high school March break, or you can see on the 26th of March, level 1 coaching course in Halifax. And then they had to fill in based on the events that they felt connected to and that they wanted to pursue. They had to fill in the dates based on those activities that they wanted to do. And they also had to write down on the post-it note who was going to be the lead for that activity. Again, this is a bit of an experiment, so we'll see how it goes. But I do want to share with you that this is kind of what it looks like in our Slack group right now. And I'll just read out this one from Molly. on the 2nd. And Molly is a first-year player that came to the team this year. So, hey, ladies, I booked the classroom in the Hongbird for next Wednesday to have a meeting at 5 p.m. just to catch up. For those who missed Monday's meeting, shouldn't take too long. If you can't make it, just let me know. So Molly is in charge of leading our high school rugby tournament this year. And to me, this is the image of successful empowerment for this athlete specifically, because not only, like, I didn't book the classroom for her, I didn't set up this meeting date, I didn't write in the group or remind her, hey, you need to remind people about the meeting. She's doing this all on her own. And so to me, that is just, even if it's just even with one person, for me, that's a success. This athlete to me right now has been empowered to take ownership over that event that she feels like there's a big purpose behind. So hopefully we have success with all of the events that we do this year with them, but this is the one that's coming up. So I think that I think she's doing a great job, and I think it's going well. The final thing that I want to talk about, this is the bonus case study, if you will. And this is like how coaches can impact other coaches. So this is a girl called Remy Myers, and she came to us in the summer as one of our summer students as our rookie rugby coordinator here in HRM. And essentially at the end of the summer, she said, you know, I love what I'm doing with Rugby Nova Scotia so much. How can I keep doing this? I want to stay involved. I want to stay on as a staff. And she got an opportunity this fall to continue on as an academy coach. And we were very happy to employ her because it was a time when Jack and I actually both left the province for national team duty. So it was great to have somebody involved who could be on the ground and wasn't fresh into the programs. But one thing that I felt I kind of stiffed Remy on a little bit at the start, and I feel badly about this, but I'm hoping that I made it up for her a little bit, is that we never got to do a lot of one-on-one mentorship when she came into the role as a coach with our academy. We did a little bit. She was one of our U15 provincial coaches as an assistant in the summer. So we did a little bit there, but not really to the level that I feel that she should have gotten when she first started with us. So when I came back in January, I made it a priority that I wanted to really focus on some mentorship with Remy and set her up for success to be a great coach and somebody developing hopefully into a great role at Rugby Nova Scotia. So we got an awesome opportunity. I know this picture is blurry, but you get the idea. We got an awesome opportunity to link in with the East Coast Varsity School and do some programming for them. We ran programming for 2 groups, junior high and with kind of an older elementary group, for 3 days a week over 3 weeks. And this was awesome because it was at lunchtime-ish in the middle of the day. And Remy is employed with us, and myself, I'm employed with us. This was a perfect opportunity for both of us to be involved in this. And so we challenged Remy she was in charge of creating all of the session plans. And I think she did a great job. She created session plans that could be used for both groups. And she did a great job leading. She led the older group. But the special part about what happened here is after every session we had 9 sessions, Remy and I would go out to lunch together and we would review her session straight away. So review her actual coaching, the technical pieces that she was saying. We would review her facilitation, so the way that she communicated to the group and the way that she got her message across. And we also reviewed some of the logistics and planning aspects of what she was doing. And I think that one-on-one mentorship was a really great opportunity for both of us to have a look at, what's needed in terms of Remy's coaching and where her strengths are and where her weaknesses are. And it just gave us an opportunity to connect and be specific about what we were actually connecting with. So that was a really great way for me to kind of work in some of the mentorship with Remy specifically. I know not all of us have that much time to do mentorship with the people who are around us, but I would say like mentorship can happen in a lot of different ways, whether it just be, a text once a month to somebody, or you're actually meeting them for lunch or for coffee. So I would challenge everybody's view of like what mentorship can actually mean and look like. And I just want to speak kind of quickly on, some of my views around mentorship, because I truly think that mentorship is probably the biggest impact that we can have on empowering people. And especially if you create a really solid trust between two people, then there's a lot of good stuff that can come out of that. And I just wanted to say that it can happen at any level. So the arrows are going both ways here. But it could be a coach with, an athlete. If you're a junior coach or a high school coach, I wouldn't mentor my assistant coaches. They're the same age as me, or maybe they're older than me, or maybe they've been coaching longer than me. But then I would say, is there maybe a captain on your team or a team leader who you could mentor differently with a different approach as an athlete and mentor them through that kind of leadership transition? Of course, coach to coach is the example I just gave there. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean one coach is the senior coach and one coach has to be the younger or more junior coach. It goes both ways. And I think that in mentorship, you can learn just as much as being the mentee as the mentor and vice versa. So good opportunity there. And then I'd also throw out, I don't have officiating down here, but of course, officials to officials would be a great one. And I would throw that in as well. But admin to coach is maybe one that we don't think about as much. So a lot of the times we have coaches on the ground who are doing all of our grassroots, and maybe they don't understand the reason why something has to happen at an administrative level. And if we've got that mentorship connection, then, that could be a good place to explain some of the reasons why. And same back and forth. The other way is, sometimes we have admin who is doing all of our booking and all of the logistics, planning, membership stuff, but they truly don't understand the logistics of what's happening on the ground. So that's a really good opportunity for both sides to learn as well. And it can be back and forth. And then last thing that I'll leave you about mentorship is just, in my view, no matter where you're at in your journey, everybody should always have a mentor, somebody that they can look up to, get support from, ask questions, go to if they're in a sticky situation. But I think everybody should also always have a mentee. So someone that they're looking to bring up through the ranks, or someone that's stood out to them as a leader. And that could be, if you're an athlete, you can still mentor the younger athletes on your team, or, somebody coming in new for the first time. If you're a coach, those are kind of the examples that we talked about. Admin, same thing. And I've got officials on here as well. And I think, if you're you in the middle here, you can learn from your mentee and you can learn from your mentor. And that's the great thing about mentorship, is there's just a lot that can be shared. So I would challenge everybody to have a look at that. If you're, this kind of leads them to my next slide, but if you feel like you're standing in a position of power right now, whether that be as a captain or a leader on your team, as a coach, as an official, as an administrator, it's my philosophy, it's my opinion that it's your turn to take a leadership role in paving the path for whoever's coming behind you. And I think that's it's a powerful thing to think about, and think about who in your community maybe you're doing that with right now without even knowing it. And can you just step it up one more level with that person? Can you just build that extra connection of trust, go out for coffee, talk with them? Even if it's just one person, it makes a difference. And I think that mentorship is really powerful in that way. And that's pretty much all that I wanted to share with everybody today. So hopefully I kept that short enough for everyone. And now if anybody has any questions about any of the stuff I shared, feel free to throw that in the chat, or just unmute yourselves.
That was awesome, Emma. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your perspective on that mentorship piece as well. And I actually have a couple of slides to show some upcoming PD and whatnot, but we also have a mentorship program that I'll just mention during this time, since Emma did such a great job overviewing mentorship and the opportunities and the different, I guess, positions that can be part of mentorship. So whether it's an athlete, a coach, a co-coach, or an administrator, with our mentorship program, we specifically have an avenue for female coaches. So if you want to be paired with a female coach, I know Emma's in the program where as a mentor, and she actually is a mentor to a coach from a different sport, but who identifies as female. So it's, women empowering women. And then we also have an opportunity for coaches to apply for the program within the same sport. So if you're already mentoring someone within your sport, you can apply, you can get an honorarium, you can get NCCP training or funding towards NCCP training for that coach. So I just kind of want to add that on to Emma's point, and I will include that in the follow-up email. But Emma, thank you so much. You're doing so much for the sport of rugby, and it's so great to see. And I know my brain's already turning of like what I can do within my sport within Ringette, and how we can develop things going forward. So if anyone has any questions, please speak up now or put it in the chat box. We have Emma for 15 more minutes if you guys want to chat.
And I'll throw this out there too, is if anybody wants to connect like at a later time, I'm happy to do that as well. If Kirsty sends a follow-up email, you can feel free to throw my email in there too, Kirsty. Well, can reach out. And like I said, I don't consider myself an expert in this at all. I'm just in a position that I can try some stuff. So I feel lucky that way. And I'm sure there's lots of people on this call that are doing wonderful things for women and girls in sport as well. And I'd love to learn about what some of the other sports are doing too.
So I'll wait a little bit more if anyone has any questions, but I actually have one. With the prep course, what was the age of those people that you saw attending?
So Remy would have been our youngest that was in that, and she's just like 2 years out of 2 years out of high school now. So she would be our youngest that was on that course, and then up to older adults was generally the age there. But yeah, like I said, our level 2 is really for coaches who are kind of like pushing to be a higher level coach. So
yeah, that's great. That's awesome that someone, I don't know how old Remy is, but like 19, 20 getting her level 2 already. Like that's great to see. And she's still playing too, I think, which is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
Hey, Emma. Why do you think there's such a disconnect from like the coaches being trained to being certified? The numbers really seem to taper off there. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm sure it's something that can be seen in a lot of the other sports as well. I think, to be quite honest, this is my own personal opinion. I have zero facts on this, but just from experience, I think it's like, as a learning facilitator, we go in and we give the course. And from there, it's like very much pushed on the coaches to, hey, you have to continue and do this stuff on your own. I'm currently doing my level 3 as well. And we're in group cohorts that we have like a WhatsApp group to connect with, and our facilitator once a month checks in on us and says like, hey, where are you guys at with the stuff that you're supposed to be doing for homework? And I think if we did that at some of the earlier courses, so not level 3 but like we don't do an evaluation in our level 1 for rugby. It only comes at the level 2. So my hope is that if I stay connected with some of these coaches, it can be something that we just like talk about whenever I see them and remind them that, hey, when are you going to do your portfolio? I can't wait to come out and evaluate you. Like, let's get this done. So I think it's just a little bit of follow-up needs to happen, and that connection with your coaches will make a difference. So that could be the mentorship piece as well. Kind of ties in.
Great. Thanks for the question, Matt. And we have another one in the chat box. I don't know if you see that, but I'll read it out loud too. So what did you notice was the biggest barrier or hesitation from women in joining that coaching cohort?
Yeah, I'll make sure I understand the question first, but I'll assume that what you meant by the coaching cohort is kind of the group of coaches looking to get their level 2 done. Feel free to, yep. So I think we didn't have a huge barrier of coaches actually looking to get it done. We're lucky in rugby that a lot of our female coaches are actually, they're a pretty high level of coach. And nothing against our male coaches, they're very good as well. But our female coaches have certainly put in the work to like come up, and their whole purpose behind wanting to get better, a lot of them say it's because my athletes are getting better and I want to be better for them. So we don't necessarily have a big drop in like the actual numbers of attendance in the course. But for me, it was just observing how much they interacted in the course, or like what their comfort level actually was in the course. So it's a 2-day course for us with our level 2. And what I had observed in the past as a facilitator was that the females generally didn't get involved when we'd say like, okay, who wants to coach this bit? Like right off the fly. They wouldn't really jump at those opportunities until maybe the second day or like later in the second day, which I think just, held them back from a bit of potential learning that could happen on the first day. So it was my goal to like put them into a situation on day 1 where they were already comfortable jumping in whenever we said, hey, who wants to coach this piece? Hey, who can tell me about this piece of the game? So that they just had a comfort level there.
Great, thank you, Emma. And I'll just read out the comment as well. So good to hear. We're always looking to find ways to make coaching education more accessible and approachable. Yeah, I'd echo that, Ashley. That's great insight. Any other questions? Feel free, we have a bit of time.
I might just add on to that from Ashley is like, I think the level 2, the prep course that we put in place maybe held them a little bit more accountable to get onto the course. So even like in that sense, you could just, you're making a connection early on, and that could have been helpful as well.
Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to speak up, but I am going to just share a slideshow real quickly about some upcoming events. So just bear with me as I navigate one screen. Okay, so we just wrapped up on the session, and our next one, as mentioned before, is with Kristen at the end of March. So she'll be talking about empowering girls in sport from her perspective from Baseball Newfoundland. And then at the beginning of April, we have Andrew on to talk about 2 things that he's learned from creating an inclusive sport environment. So as you can see, we have this like theme going about 2 things, like 2, and it's because of 2022. We're trying to keep with the theme of like things that people have learned throughout the past year. So yeah, our last 2 podium performances for this spring sessions are with Kristen and Andrew, and you can register on the locker. And again, in the follow-up email, I'll have links to those as well. And then in a couple weeks, Andrew and I are going to be hitting the road, traveling all over Nova Scotia. So we're going to be visiting each region, and you can see that on the right, to talk about building inclusive sport environments. So Andrew and I will be presenting, we'll be, hosting kind of a networking event. It's going to be an hour and a half long at each location. And we're going to be discussing a variety of things around equity, diversity, inclusion, having open conversations, answering questions you have, and then getting ideas of what we can provide in the future to help you guys navigate the EDI space. And again, more information, I'll include it in the follow-up email, and it's all on our website and on our social media. And it's completely free. I also wanted to highlight VIP because the next session, or the next slide I'm going to show you is about the Atlantic Coaches Conference, and anyone that's a VIP coach gets 50% off the Atlantic Coaches Conference. So we actually have VIP programs now in PEI and soon in New Brunswick, but I'm just going to highlight the Nova Scotia one. So in Nova Scotia, again, it's completely free, and this program is created to recognize coaches for their contributions and also to raise the bar for what it means to be a coach. So we want to ensure that all coaches are, ethically coaching, completing their safe sport requirements, staying up to date on coaching courses and coaching requirements. And we completely support you financially to ensure that you can obtain those certain requirements. So we require you to have CAC safe sport training, commit to kids training. We cover the cost for that. We would like you to have your coaching certification, criminal record checks complete. And again, we cover the cost for that. And so once you complete all these safe sport requirements, you receive a variety of perks. So you receive an Under Armour kit, Under Armour discounts, and as mentioned, access to professional development opportunities, including 50% off the Atlantic Coaches Conference. So that's the next thing I'd like to highlight is the Atlantic Coaches Conference. Our early bird actually ends next week, so March 15th. There's a reduced price in the tickets, and then it will go up. So make sure you purchase your tickets before March 15th, and then you'll have access to a variety of presenters. There's 4 kind of highlighted here on the right-hand side. But we have the option, it's going to be hybrid, so you can either join online or in person at the Homewood Suites in downtown Halifax. It's our first in-person conference in 2 years. So we're really excited. We would love for people to join, no matter where you're joining us from. You can join virtually, or maybe you want to make the trek down to Halifax, Nova Scotia. But feel free to reach out to me with any questions about this conference. And again, I'll be following up with more information, following up with that from this session. And that's it for me. Again, if you have any more questions, please ask now. And if not, I'm going to pause the recording. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Emma.